So, in the not-so-distant past, it used to be a common enough practice for young people to have jobs. I know that seems impossible to believe now, that even with a graduate degree, you can't get a job at Starbucks because that position is occupied by a guy my age with 3 PhDs instead of your just 1. But imagine 4 young kids working at a drugstore, convenience store, a notion store of some sort. They're teenagers, it's a Saturday night, they're left to close the store, and all they want to do, they can't wait for 9 o'clock to come around so they can lock the place up, count out the cash registers, and book for the doors. So we have 4 young kids working at this store. 2 men, 2 women, 2 boys, 2 girls. 2 young men, strapping young men, 2 comely young women. Donald is an assistant manager, which is a way of paying somebody with a title instead of money. And he works the floor. He floats all around the store, deals with customers, deals with inventory, deals with cleanup on aisle 3. Calvin works at the photo counter. Irene works at the cosmetics counter. And Sarah mans the cash register in the front of the store. We got coverage. So the doors are locked. It's 9:03. Sarah's counting her drawer. Irene's counting her drawer. Calvin's counting her drawer, his drawer. Donald's pacing the floor, looking for things to do. Sweeping up, putting things away. Making sure the door is locked. Making sure the lights are all off. Making sure the lights are all off again. Making sure the warehouse is locked. Donald's a busy guy. Sarah counts out her drawer, and it's perfect to the penny. Irene counts out her drawer, and she's off by 39 cents, and she slips that 39 cents in there and doesn't think twice about it. Calvin's drawer is never off. Ever off. Except tonight. And he's 37 cents short. Donald's still busy. Irene's bored. She's looking at her makeup mirror, trying to decide if she's pretty enough or if she needs to primp a little bit more. And Sarah is looking at everybody, wondering how to make this little scenario more pleasant for everyone, wondering how she can give people what will make them happy so that they can all be happy together. Calvin wants to count his drawer again. Calvin's never short. He's never open. He wants to count his drawer again because he's convinced he's not wrong. He counts it again. He counts perfectly. He's 37 cents short. Guess what? He counts it a 3rd time, and he's still 37 cents short. And now he wants Donald to count it. Donald doesn't ever want to count anything. It's not in Donald's nature to count things. If he does count, he's going to get an accurate count because he's a careful man, but he'd really rather not do it. Calvin manages to talk him into it anyway, and so Donald counts the drawer, and guess what? It comes up 37 cents short. Irene really wants to go. She's got a date, and she really wants to go. Sarah really wants everybody to be getting along, and Donald and Calvin are getting more and more rancorous with each other. Calvin wants to fix the problem, whatever it is, and Donald wants to fix the problem by making it go away. And so Donald wants to take 2 quarters out of his pocket and throw it in Calvin's drawer and say, guess what, dude, you can start tomorrow 13 cents strong. Which to Calvin sounds like an expression of derision and contempt, but in fact it's just impatience on Donald's part. He just wants to go, and 37 cents is not worth worrying about. Irene feels the same way, although she doesn't even give a rat's ass about the 37 cents. She just wants to go, and Sarah just wants for everybody to get along. We'll come back to them. I like those kids. But first, welcome to the Church of Splendor. This is an atheist, egoist church. There is no God underlying this church. It's an egoist church in the sense that I am teaching a moral philosophy based on the rational expression of your self-interest in the context of your whole life. If you want to read more about the doctrine that I teach here week by week, go to my site, selfadoration.com. In particular, look for a book called Man Alive. It's free, and it will teach you a moral philosophy that has never been explicated before. It's not a, as far as I'm concerned, it's a discovery. This is a matter of fact, and not conjecture or opinion or dogma or doctrine or holy writ or anything at all like that. Man Alive is a book about how better to use the hardware that you have parked above your eyes. And that's all it is. It's a survival manual for the human mind. But that's what I'm doing, is I am teaching a moral philosophy about human thriving, about how best to achieve the fullest and best possible flourishing that you can attain with your one unique, irreplaceable human life. So you can go to selfadoration.com and read more about this. I don't want to belabor it now. I have new people seeing me do this for the first time, and I want to explain what we're up to. So if there's no religion, and if it's all about egoism, how is it a church? Well, it's a church because there's an offering plate. And this is the distinguishing factor of a church. You don't need a God, you don't need a doctrine, you don't need a religion. If there's an offering plate, it's a church. My church has an offering plate. Go to selfadoration.com, look for I Don't Go to Your Church, and you will have an opportunity to contribute to this ministry. And if you do, I will use your money to make it grow, because I'm saving the world. We'll come back to it when we go back to the kids in the drugstore. We'll talk about motivations, but money doesn't mean very much to me. I need it to keep my fat cells from collapsing, but beyond that, I really don't care. I eat peanut butter 2 meals a day. I eat off of paper plates all the time, and I do not care. I do not care about money. And we'll talk about why when we get back to our 4 teenagers. But if you contribute to this ministry, I am all for it, and I want to grow it, and I want to grow it as big as I can. And I call this televangelism, which is funny, because this is YouTube. But I think of it as televangelism, and that's what I want to do with it. I want to take it to television Sunday morning. You can buy cheap time all over America right now and just blast this message of rational egoism, self-adoration, the motivation within your mind to achieve everything that you want from your life, not just in terms of personal success or pecuniary riches or things like that, but the love and comfort and solace and serenity that you get by pursuing all of your values in their appropriate hierarchy in your life. And I think it's absurd that I have to teach this. This is a completely normal motivation for every biological entity that ever existed except us. The only people who have to be taught how to honor their own interests are human beings. Every other organism honors its own interests by default, as should you. You've been indoctrinated to be hostile to your values, to make war on your values, to disrupt and destroy, denigrate, deride, to trash your values, to turn everything that you love into garbage, and then to stand at the garbage heap mourning everything that you threw away. I'm against that. There are 3 rules so far to the Church of Splendor. I don't know that there'll ever be more, but there are 3 rules so far, and I'll tell you what they are. Rule number 1 is I don't go to your church. And that means 2 things. Number 1, if you have a question for me that comes in the form of, why don't you say this, or why don't you say that, or this is this, and how come you disagree with that? I don't go to your church. Whoever it is that you think should be answering those questions, that person is not me, because I'm not responsible for what you believe. I don't have a problem with your believing whatever you want to believe, and in that respect, I'm a nice guy atheist. I hate the kind of atheism that consists of sneering at or deriding people, or regarding it as being some sort of moral fault to be in disagreement with me. I have beliefs about the origin of the universe that I can't prove. You have beliefs about the origin of the universe that you can't prove. 0 equals 0. I can defend my atheism very well, and if you want to ask me about it, I'll be happy to defend it in detail, in ways that you probably never thought about theism or atheism before. But I don't go to your church. I'm not responsible for defending your doctrine or explaining why I disagree with your doctrine or even understanding your doctrine. I really don't care. There are a zillion and one wrong ideas in the world, and I've studied none of them. I intend to continue that policy. But the other half of rule number 1, I don't go to your church, is that you came to my church. I'm going to say what I came here to say. That's what I'm doing, is telling you what I think. I'm teaching you what I've learned. In 35 years of studying this problem, I'm teaching you what I've learned, and if you want to learn what I know, come to my church. But I don't go to your church. You came to my church. I'm going to talk. You don't want to hear me? Switch off. It's easy. I want you to stay. I want you to learn what I know. I want you to learn it well enough that you can teach it back to me and teach me better. But I'm not here to pander to you. I'm not here to cater to you. I'm not here to kowtow to you, and I'm certainly not here to cower to you. And that leads us right into rule number 2, which is I am not arguing with you. Number 2, I am not arguing with you. This is very hard for me to live up to, because I'm good at arguing. Really good at it. I've been doing it a long time. Longer than you could imagine, on the internet, long before you ever knew it existed. When it was really rough and mean. Hard to believe. The internet is rough and mean now, but you have no idea what rough and mean looks like. Take yourself back in time to the mid-'80s before. But when I wrote Man Alive, I resolved that I don't want to be in that situation anymore. I've been trying to be better about this all my life. For the last 35 years, I've been trying to be better about this. But I decided that I don't want to be in that situation anymore. I don't want to be in a situation where I am arguing with people, where I am living in kind of a rancorous state, or certainly experiencing a whole lot of rancor coming back from other people. I don't learn anything from that. And I doubt that anyone else does either, because their anger gets in the way of their learning anything. So I am not arguing with you. If you leave a comment for me in some other way, try to engage me in some kind of confrontational situation, I'm going to do my best to avoid it. I won't guarantee perfect performance, because I'm a mammal, and I can be provoked. I don't want to be provoked, but it is doable. If you set yourself the challenge of that, that'll be real fun for you. But I don't intend to do it. Number 1, I don't learn anything from it. Number 2, it is bad for me. It is bad for me morally, because to behave badly is to be a bad person. That is what a bad person is a person who behaves badly. And I don't want to be one. I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a good person. That's what this is all about. And I want to teach you what I know, and I want for you to be a good person. I want you to be a better person. But if you are or aren't, I have no control over that. The only life I can control is my own. And I choose not to be a bad person. I choose not to behave badly. And so if you choose to behave badly toward me, to put on some ridiculous mammalian display that has absolutely nothing to do with intellectual rigor, has absolutely nothing to do with making a profound and useful and persuasively valid argument, I'm going to ignore you. Because that's all I can do. I don't intend to argue with you. I'm not going to fix you by engaging you, and therefore I'm just going to ignore you. And your display will persist for all to see forever. They will be able to identify what kind of person you are, the nature of your character, by the way that you behave towards strangers in public. But I'm not going to play. I'm not going to be involved. I am not arguing with you. And that, in turn, leads me to the 3rd rule of the Church of Splendor, which is don't be an asshole. It's directed at me, not at you. My job here, I think, my job is to be the Dutch uncle of the 3rd millennium. I am leading Western civilization back to Socrates, back to philosophy as a tool for living human life on Earth, not an arcane branch of study pursued by full-time professional rent seekers who can't do anything but sneer at the people who work all day to pay their unearned livelihood. I have no use for academia, and my contempt starts with the philosophy department. The absolute most useless department in any university is the philosophy department. Eliminate it tomorrow, no one would miss it. There's absolutely nothing going on there that's of any moment or importance to living a human life. Don't waste a bomb on it. Don't waste any gasoline burning the building down. You can do something else with it. Fire every one of the Marxist rent seekers in the philosophy department, and you will never miss them. In fact, human civilization will gradually improve because they won't be around to poison the minds of young people anymore. Young people who can't get jobs because of Marxist philosophy professors. Because payback is a motherfucker. When was the last time you heard motherfucker in church? But that third rule, don't be an asshole, applies to me as much as I know, and as much as I know about how people could be doing better, nevertheless, they won't do better as a consequence of me yelling at them, sneering at them, or scolding them, making fun of them. Dutch uncle is now your real uncle. Dutch uncle might be your least favorite uncle because he's the one who always tells you what you don't want to hear. But your Dutch uncle is a straight shooter. Never lies to you. Never leads you toward his interest and away from your own. He really does his best to be kind. So this is my not too brief introduction to the Church of Splendor. If you decide never to come back, you will be one among 7 billion. If you decide to come back, then you will be a pioneer in an intellectual revolution that could take anywhere from 500 days to 500 weeks to 500 years to work out. But this is the beginning of the rebirth of human civilization, because this is the point at which you turned around. You stopped looking at the dump and started looking at the world the way it really is. A garden of beauty, plenty, love, splendor. That's what we're here for. One of the ideas that I've been playing with for the past couple of years is, I call it transactions. As soon as you say transaction, people start thinking about money and merchandise. Everything that human beings trade one to another is a transaction from my point of view. So we're engaged in a transaction right now, even though I can't see you, and the me that you're seeing is by now in the past. There is no reality to this transaction except for the video and intellectual interplay between us. And nevertheless, I am selling you on a body of ideas, and you are buying or not buying those ideas depending on your preference. And that becomes a transaction. That I shake your hand, I hug you, I kiss you. These are all transactions. I slap you, I glare at you, shoot a bazooka at your parked car. These are all transactions. The human social interaction takes form in the form of transactions. It is not simply an interaction. It is a selling and a buying, and generally it is many, many sellings and many, many buyings, a ping-pong back and forth of transactions. That here you're the seller, next you're the buyer, then again you're the seller, then you're the buyer again, back and forth in your interactions with particular people. Every person in your life you have transactions with. Every group that you belong to has bigger transactions among some or all of the members, and everything works that way. And it always involves a trade of values. The value can be money, the value can be merchandise, but typically it's not. Typically it's emotional factors. A couple of weeks ago I talked about the love of Loki, and how the love of Loki is expressed in pain, really, in torment, in teasing, in delaying, in pushing, shoving, poking, pinching, joking. But the love of Loki is expressed in ways that are intended to induce pain in a buyer. The person selling the joke is attempting to get a laugh out of the buyer by causing the buyer pain. But it's an expression of love because the seller took the time to get to know the buyer well enough to know what would cause an amusing pain. Not just pain, but a pain that would be seen as loving and amusing at the same time. And that's why it's love. That's what's so pretty about it. We'll get to the other side of Loki's malice. We'll get to it someday. I don't want to do it today. But the malice actually takes the same form, that you can't express particular malice for a particular person without really knowing that person and without knowing what pain is going to hurt the worst. Love and hate are side by side. They're back to back. The thing that's opposite love and hate is indifference. But in any case, every interaction among two or more human beings is going to involve a mutually voluntary interaction. If it's involuntary, then we're talking about different things. But a voluntary interaction is going to involve transactions of this type. And the transactions that occur will be particular to the individual. We are each one of us unique, and the things that make us unique are the things that make you a self. Yourself is unique, the idea that you have of your life is unique, and the way that you express that self is unique. And yet, we can isolate people in big categories and understand a whole lot about their motivations and understand a whole lot about how to engage in transactions with those people just by looking at their normal, baseline, predisposed behavior, how they are predisposed to behave when there isn't anything working strongly to go to persuade them to choose in one way or another. So let's go back to our teenagers. Donald is an extrovert. Extrovert and introvert are categories of personality. An extrovert likes people, likes to be around people, likes to engage people. Irene is also an extrovert. Irene likes to engage people. Irene really needs people. Calvin and Sarah are introverts. They don't need other people, and other people tend to drain them when they're involved in social situations that are not of their choosing. They are very terribly drained by other people. They much prefer their own solitude in those circumstances. That introverts are very deeply intimate, one-on-one, or in their families with relationships that they've chosen. But among less chosen relationships, like work relationships, or, study groups in school, or things like that, the introverts are not at all comfortable, and they much prefer to just work alone. They'd really rather prefer to work alone. Donald and Irene are extroverts. Calvin and Sarah are introverts. This relates to the Myers-Briggs personality inventory, which you can find online for free, or you can pay people to take a better one. But you'll hear INTJ all the time. That's the one you'll hear all the time. Calvin is an INTJ, I will tell you. But the two that really matter in terms of doing a quick read on people so you can tell how to engage the people that you're dealing with in order to make your transactions work better for both of you. The one that really matters is extrovert and introvert. The other three factors really matter in terms of understanding people, and what I'm talking about is reading people on the fly, and so you should really familiarize yourself with Briggs-Myers and understand particular categories and how those categories are going to play out in the way that people make their choices. But INTJ is one that you should know because your boss is one. Your big boss, not necessarily your immediate boss, but the big boss of your company is an INTJ, an INTP, an ESTJ, an ESTP. I'll take that bet all day. Feel free to send me money and contact information on your boss, and I will do the analysis and keep your money because your boss is an INTJ, an INTP, an ESTJ, an ESTP. This is the way the world works, and that's why is it worthwhile to know how to do this in order to understand how the world works. The other analysis tool that we're going to use here is a system called DISC, D-I-S-C. You can search this on the internet. There's a wonderful page on Wikipedia about it. Calvin is a man of rigor. Donald is a man of action. I am very much like Donald. I am a high D in the DISC system. I name these children by where they fit in the DISC system just to make it easy to understand who's who. Donald is a D. Donald is a driver. Donald wants things done, 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 done. Not today, yesterday, because there's something else to do today. And if today's work is done, let's start on tomorrow's work because everything needs to get done. And that's why Donald works the floor, because he can't sit still, he can't stand still. That's why he fidgets the whole time the other three are counting out their cash drawers, because he just can't stand not to be doing so. Sarah is a high S on the DISC system. She is social. She cares about social factors. She wants for people to get along. Her virtues involve sociability and compassion. If everyone in the group is happy, Sarah is happy even if the business is going broke. Irene is a high I. She cares about image. She cares about how she is perceived by other people. That's why she's looking at her hand mirror all the time. That's why she works the cosmetics counter, because she understands cosmetics the way nobody does, the way Sarah never will. And Calvin is a high C. When I talk about DISC, I almost always use computational to indicate what C means. High C's will be spreadsheet builders. They will be the people who count things, the people who count everything, the people who can't stand it when they're counting something and they come up with a different count 2 different times. They'll keep counting until they get the same count 3 times in a row, 5 times in a row, 10 times in a row. We associate OCD with high C's, and that's not fair, and we'll talk about that too. But the personality characteristic that really identifies high C's is compliant. That high C's like long lists of detailed rules, and they like to be perfectly compliant with all those rules. And so making the cash drawer come out right is not really a matter of money or even a matter of reputation. That if Irene's drawer came up short, she might worry that she would be suspected of being a thief. That's why she dumped the money in right away and didn't think twice about it, because even though simple math errors, simple mistakes, she didn't intend for the store to come up short. Nevertheless, the store did come up short as far as she knows, because she only counted once and she might be wrong anyway. But she put money in the drawer right away because she wants to protect her reputation. If Sarah had come up short, she would have been crestfallen, because she would be worried sick that she's depriving the owner of the store and his kids of something that they really need. And Donald threw money in Calvin's cash drawer because Donald just wants to move on and get things done. His attitude is that 13 cents, $13, maybe even $1,300, it wouldn't be worth waiting over. Get it out of the way and let's move on. There is no theft here. There is nothing to be worried about. There's nothing to be investigated. All there is a shortage that's easy to fix. Let's fix it and move on. But that system, that DISC system, will help you identify people on the fly, just like that. This is something you can do right away. Introvert and extrovert might take a little while. Sometimes you can tell right away. I mean, introverts really pop out. They really show, because they're rare, and rare things are easier to see. But, you know, someone says, hey, come sit at my table, that's an extrovert. The person is walking away from your table and sitting all the way back in the corner, that's an introvert. This is kind of easy to work out as you watch people, but DISC is something that's very easy to work out in really just a couple of minutes with someone that you just met. You can tell where they are, D-I-S-C. Driven, image, social, compliant, computational. You can tell right away how they are. And what that tells you is how they will choose. It tells you the motivation that will drive them when they're choosing. And so, you're a car salesman. Let's leave that notion store. And now you're a car salesperson. And I come on your lot. I'm like Donald. I'm a high D. I come on your lot. I know exactly what car I'm there for. I tell you, this is the car I want. Put me in it. Let's take a test drive. If I like it, I say, write up the paperwork. I know the price I'm going to pay. I'm not going to pay a penny more. I know all of the other chicken shit you're going to throw at me, and we're going to dispense with that all right away. And If you're not ready with the paperwork right away, I'll go away and come back because I can't stand to sit around and wait on you. If Sarah shows up, you can spend a long time with her. She's not going to buy anything from you until she really gets to know you. And she's going to want to know that her choice is making you happy. She doesn't think your way, so she doesn't know that any choice that you make other than no choice is going to make you happy. Anything that she buys is going to make you happy because only by buying will you get paid. But Sarah wants to make sure that you're going to be happy with her choice because you matter to her. You'll do a real good job steering Irene that whatever she thinks she likes, what she really likes is to be seen in the best possible light. And that's the way you sell it to her. And you got a convertible that isn't moving, you can probably sell it to Irene because Irene likes the thought of driving with the top down where everybody can see her. Calvin's going to take a lot of your time too. Because Calvin is going to have all the documentation on all the cars that he's interested in. He's going to have a notebook where he keeps careful notes on each car that you take out for test driving. And he may take the time sitting at your desk or in the conference room, may take the time to sit down and make a matrix so that he can see bullet point and percentage-wise which among his choices is the optimal maximum. It's the way he's going to work. But if you know this is so, if you can tell Donald from Calvin, from Irene, from Sarah, then you can tailor your presentation, whatever it is, to the particular person that you're talking to. I am a high D. If you read about DISC, you'll read the idea of chameleons, people who are have a little bit of all the characteristics. I'm willing to concede that often you'll find characteristics like DC. Your boss, your nerd boss, if you have a nerd boss like Bill Gates, a boss like Bill Gates, your boss is an introvert and a DC. And I can express that. I can give you a notation for that. I can't show you anything while I'm doing this, but I can give you an easy notation. Capital letter I / capital letter D, lowercase letter C. Introvert, overdriven, computational. It's real easy to find ISs or IDs. Salespeople, really good salespeople, typically will be high I's and nothing else. But if they have something else, they'll be extroverts too. But if they have something else, it's often S or D. If you find an IC, you've got the guy that you're going to promote to be sales manager, and he's going to wreck your sales effort. If you've got an ID, he's going to be the best sales manager you ever had. I am an introvert, which is probably hard for you to believe, considering them sitting here staring right at you, playing my guitar badly, loudly, but badly, and with extreme confidence, professing to tell you how the world works. I'm a high D. All I really care about is getting things done, and so everything that I do is done for D purposes, and right now you see me being an I for D purposes. Right down to the white shirt. Candidate comes from chalk, the Latin word candida for chalk. When you were running for office, you would use chalk to make your toga extra white. That's where candidate comes from. I have my blindingly white shirt to prove my virtue. But I'm an I for D purposes. I can do C work. I hate it. I don't like it. Last week I made a huge math there. I multiplied times 7 the number of hours you can expect to spend making love with your best beloved. Calculated the number of weeks and then multiplied it by the number of days in a year, instead of multiplied it by 365 instead of 52. Nobody caught me on it, which suggests that nobody is actually watching these movies. I expect from the high C's to catch the math there. But the week before that, I told you how Loki interjects himself between you and your children. Nobody objected to that either, so nobody's listening, nobody gets it, nobody cares. Pick your choice. I'm happy with any of those choices. It doesn't really matter to me. As I said, I'm not talking for today, I'm talking for forever. And eventually people will listen and they will care. And I won't say I can wait because I might be dead, but It's fine with me. I'm not having a problem with it. It's because I'm a D. I want things done, and things can't be done until they're done. And so I'm doing what I can right now and waiting for the rest to happen later. I'll find other things to do to keep myself from going crazy. I can be a C for D purposes. You see me being an I for purposes. And what I'm actually doing in talking to you this way is being an S for D purposes. I am a high D talking to high C's and high S's. The I's will not listen to me. They don't really listen to anybody. The C's really won't listen to me much, but the S's will listen to me a lot. I'm a D talking to S's, and I'm talking to S's about S values. I'm talking to everyone about S values, about the values that go into love, romance, sex, marriage, family. The absolute highest values you can have outside of yourself. You have to take care of yourself first, and if your family life is hostile to your ongoing egoism, then something's got to change, and it may have to change drastically, but that is not the case. That is almost never the case. And when you say almost never, I say I'm not listening, because I'm a D. I'm only interested in the things that really matter. I can't change things with almost never, and if I do successfully change everything with almost never, I successfully change almost nothing. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in the 2% of the bell curve that consists of extremely fascinating outliers, fascinating to high C's like Calvin, fascinating to high I's like Irene because it gives her something to talk about, maybe fascinating to Sarah because it gives her something to feel compassionate about. I'm a D. I don't give a shit about any of that. I care about the 98% that matters, not the 2% that doesn't. I care about the cash in the drawer, not the cash that's missing. And if we need to replace the cash that's missing to put the drawer back in the cash register, lock up the store, and go home, then here's my 50 cents. Let's go home. I'm a D. D's and C's work really well together. This is the secret to the business world is D's and C's. Everything that you associate with production, manufacturing, finance, all of the back-end part of business, everything except for sales and marketing is D's and C's. Who does the sales and marketing? The I's. Who are the kind who tread the grain? They are the S's. The S's are the salt of the earth, and they mark that particular little shaker on the table with an S to remind you that the S's are the salt of the earth. If you are an employer and you realize that your employees are all S's, stop paying them in money. You don't have to give them raises. You just have to give them hugs and parties. That's manipulation. Don't do it. It's just funny. It's true. You want to get better results out of your sales team? Better spiffs, in other words, better cash payments, better commissions might work. Better plaques and trophies might work better, because your salespeople are high I's. The good ones are high I's, and the bad ones should be fired, because bad salespeople pull high I's down. But your salespeople, you might be able to pay them with trophies instead of money. Likewise for your C's, you can provide them with more order, better hardware, better tools, more arcane tools, things that are harder to understand, that take more study, that demonstrate to high C's that they're really, really smarter than everyone else. You can pay them with that kind of stuff, and you don't have to pay them with money. And the same is true for D's. If you've got high D's on your staff and you want to know how to compensate them without kicking in any more money, give them more to do, more responsibility, make the challenges more challenging, make them more impossible. Give a high D the impossible to do. They'll have it done by Tuesday. And if you understand this, if you understand that every person has these motivations in one degree or another, that the D might be combined with an S, you have, extrovert DS, capital E / capital D, lowercase s, that's a nice guy boss. Introvert DS is a good guy boss. Introvert DC is a punctilious boss. Everything will be in its place, and the company will make money. I am an introvert and a high D. I'm an INTJ, Briggs Myers. I'm a lone wolf. Highly dominant, very aggressively purposive in the way I express my intelligence, the way all INTJs do. But because I am D and an introvert and nothing else, I'm the boss who will bring the best work out of you, and you will hate it every day you work for me. And you will remember me and love me every day you're out from under my thumb. And you will use me as your example when you're training your own employees. And you'll wonder why you can't get my kind of results out of people. And it's because you want them to like you, and I don't give a shit. My wonderful wife is nothing but S. She will tell you she's a chameleon, and she's not. She's nothing but S. She's nothing but compassion. And I am married now because of that. And to be married to a prick boss is a particular kind of hell. And only a high S can tolerate it. I'm so lucky to have her, and lucky that she stuck it out long enough for me to understand this well enough for me to moderate my own behavior so that I'm not running roughshod over her when all I really want to do is get things done. I mentioned that high C's get the reputation for being OCD. High C's are very often INTJ, ENTJ, INTP. In other words, very obsessive about all kinds of stuff, and their obsessions show, especially when they keep you waiting, counting the cash drawer over and over again. You really get a clear understanding of high C obsessions. But really, every one of these personality characteristics will have its own associated OCD behavior. So somebody like me, a high D, you keep me waiting, I will drive you nuts. I will drive you nuts. I cannot stand to be kept waiting. I hate it. To overcome this, to compensate for this, I always have something else to do. I always have something else with you to do because I just can't stand to wait. And if I wait, oh man, I pace, I growl, I shout. Unbelievable, awful behavior. I mean, behavior that I would have no problem condemning it if I saw it in someone else, and yet there I am. Every time I'm made to wait, I go ape shit. And there's no excuse for that other than that I am so driven that I can't be anything else. And you need to be aware of that. And you need to be aware of that inside your own mind, so you're compensating for this. Frankly, you want to get me off your car a lot faster, want to get paid fast, you say, hey, buddy, buy this one. I'll get you out of here in 10 minutes. I'll buy the shittiest car on your lot to be done in 10 minutes. I will make mistakes. I am so driven to get things done. I will make errors getting things done. I need to compensate for that. I need to be aware of it. Calvin's OCD is really, really frustrating, but it's what keeps businesses going. It's what keeps a business alive. If your CFO is not a high C, he's probably a thief. If your CFO is a high I, a high D, check the books. If you want to drive Irene crazy, if you want to drive a high I crazy, put her in timeout. Not really, just don't pay any attention to her. Don't notice her. Don't comment on her looks. Don't comment on her outfit. Don't comment on what she's doing. Don't take any notice of her whatever. You will drive her crazy in no time. She can't stand it. A high I is almost always going to be an extrovert. I cannot imagine an introverted I. I don't know what you get when you get an introverted I, maybe like Robespierre. I mean, this is going to be really a really radically unlikely combination that is likely in its turn to result in some really unlikely events. But a high I is almost always going to be an extrovert, and extroverts need people. If you take the attention away from them, you'll drive them nuts in no time. She'll start to act as OCD as Calvin, as OCD as Donald, just by taking the attention away. And for Sarah, it's the same thing. Take the sociability away, turn everything into hostility and rancor, and Sarah will be crazy in no time. Sarah will quit that job because she can't stand to live in a unhappy family, and that's the way she sees every group that she belongs to. Every group that she belongs to, in very short order, is a family to her. And if that family is unhappy, then Sarah will be unhappy. Donald won't notice. Calvin won't notice. Irene won't care. And it'll eat Sarah alive. And a way that you can understand all of these motivations, a real simple way that you're looking at someone that you just met, you're really just getting to know, you've only been together maybe 45 minutes, but you've seen that person make choices, make decisions. You've seen that person in real life, whether on the job or in a social situation, not at a party or a bar or someplace like that where you really can't get to know someone. You've seen that person in action, engaged in real life. You can express it in the form of a fill-in-the-blank sentence, and it goes like this. For Donald, it's not about the money. What's important is blank. Doing things. For Calvin, it's not about the money. What's important is compliance with the exact procedure. For Irene, it's not about the money. It's about the way that people respond to her. And for Sarah, it's not about the money, it's about the way that she responds to those people and the way they respond to each other. There's no money in any of these transactions. There will be money. There will be, shared motivations, DSs, DIs. DIs are common. DCs are good bosses. CDs are real good nerd bosses. They make real good accountants. And people will veil their motivations, and like me, they will be aware of how they're driven to error by those motivations, and they'll be careful to compensate for their natural impulses to make sure that they're not making a mistake. You take the time to figure out that the people that you're dealing with, to figure out if they're introverts or extroverts, and to figure out where they are on the DISC scale, whether they're all one thing, high D, high C, high I, high S, or some combination. SC, I can't imagine that one. I'd have to think about how somebody could be an SC. An SD would be kind of a lazy guy boss. The boss who let you get away with everything and who punched you out so you could leave early to go to a party, that would be an SD. This is not a good boss. This business is going to fail. Have a backup plan. But if you learn how to do this and do it quickly, you should be doing it right away with people, anticipating that you're going to be correcting your conclusions as you go along. But everyone you meet, you should be doing introvert, extrovert, and DISC on them right away and persistently, consistently. And if you do that, you will understand the people that you're dealing with, and you will know how to respond to them in a way that makes sense to them, is comfortable to them, and will enable them to come to a decision quickly, easily, comfortably, and ideally profitably for both the seller and the buyer. But when you are the seller, when you are trying to persuade someone to do something differently in your behalf, in your interest, if you don't understand how that person is motivated, you don't know what you're selling, and you don't know how to get it sold. It says you never learn nothing practical in church. My name is Greg Swann. This is the Church of Splendor. I hope you'll join me again next week and every Sunday. And God bless Anthony Johnson of the 21 Convention for making this streaming available to me. I'm grateful to Anthony in every way, and I am deeply impressed by this young man. I want to live forever so I can see what he grows into. But bless you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Church of Splendor, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.